Hello, everybody. Hi. Okay, thanks everyone for being here on time. I think we're going to give maybe people a few more minutes to stream in. Just to make sure that you can hear us properly, if you don't mind just dropping a reaction from the reactions tab. Any reaction is fine, but that will let us know that you can actually hear us. Thank you so much. There we go. Great, I see the reactions flowing in. Thank you, everybody. Okay. For those who have just joined us, welcome. We are waiting for a couple more minutes for people to stream in. But if you're new here and you just joined in, maybe you can drop us a reaction from the reactions tab just to make sure that you can actually hear us and that audio is transmitting well. I see a few familiar names and many not so familiar names. That's cool. All right, in addition to actually being on the Zoom platform, if you have friends who are also interested in being part of this, you can share with them the Facebook page for Sungai-Way Subang Methodist Church. I believe we are streaming on there. And also Dr. Kelvin Yii is streaming from his own page as well. So you have two options to send it to your friends, right? Yeah. So yes, live broadcast links are being put in the chat. Thank you, Ashok, for the comment. It's good to know that we are sounding and looking good, I guess. Okay, so the tech team is going to work on a couple of technical issues, but maybe just to kind of keep this moving as they sort out through the technical issues, I will run through very quickly the kind of ground rules that we have for today. And I will circle back later, again, when we do officially start. But for everyone who is here, due to the number of participants and just in accordance with general online etiquette, all of the participants are muted, right? However, there is a chat function enabled, and we encourage you to post your questions there. As you listen to today's presentation, you may have a couple of questions. Please drop them in the chat. And then we will also be encouraging you at the end to interact with the speaker. He's very open to that interaction. And so at the end, if you would like to ask your questions directly to him, we will be selectively unmuting those who have those questions during the Q&A. All right, so that's kind of the style of how it's going to happen today. I think we are almost through with the technical issues, guys. Okay, looks like we are good to go, everybody. Right, thank you so much for your patience and welcome everyone to this talk on GE15 and UNDI15. My name is Josiah and I will be co-moderating with Dr. Oon-Ee and he will be the co-moderator for today as well. We are very glad to have you all here with us, especially the young people. Could I have everyone who is a first-time voter show a Zoom react for us, just so that we can kind of assess. I mean, you don't have to be a young person too. If you're really voting for the first time, you can drop us a react. Yeah, I see a few. Thank you for joining us. We are excited to have you here today. Thank you. Great. So the political scene in Malaysia can be very confusing, and it has gotten a lot more confusing in the last few years. One good thing, however, is that Malaysian young people, 18 and above, now have the right to vote. So what is this right for anyway? And is it worth anything? How can this make a better Malaysia? How can I and you make a better Malaysia? So tonight we've got a very special guest, Dr. Kelvin Yii, to talk to us about this and more. All right, and I will just go through the ground rules again for all of you who are just entering right now. We're expecting quite a lot of participants, and so to kind of control the flow of traffic and of interaction, all of the participants are muted. However, if you would like to drop questions, there is a chat function that is enabled, and we encourage you to post your questions there. All right, for those of you who are looking for that chat and you can't find it, it should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if it's not there, you can look in the More tab as well. All right, so the chat and the reactions are there. Okay, so for written questions, the moderators, myself and Dr. Oon-Ee, will collate your questions and present them to Kelvin during the Q&A session at the end of his presentation. Okay. However, Kelvin has also opened and encouraged all of you to interact with him directly. And so later at the end of the Q&A, if you do have a question that you would like to ask directly, please drop us a reaction and note, and we can unmute you, and you can then provide him with your question. All right. So again, all online rules, general etiquette are in force, so please be civil to each other. All right. I think that will be very conducive and would encourage actually good interaction. Okay, so without further ado, let me get into the speaker introduction, and then I'll pass it over to Kelvin. YB Dr. Kelvin Yii Liew is pretty much the ideal Asian child, having a medical degree from Volgograd State Medical University in Russia, as well as a law degree from the University of London, and a master's in medical law from Northumbria University, as well as a certificate from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Just reading that makes you feel tired already. He's 36 years old, the husband of but one wife, and a brand new father of one. So congratulations, Dr. Kelvin. In politics, Kelvin is a member of the Democratic Action Party, DAP. He's the incumbent member of parliament for the Bandar Kuching constituency in Sarawak, with an almost 80% parliament session attendance rate. So if you're familiar with parliament session attendance rates, 80% is pretty amazing, right? He will be contesting the same seat again in the upcoming GE15 in Bandar Kuching, right? Besides being an MP, he was also the chair of the Health, Science and Innovation Select Committee in Parliament, as well as a member of the Budget Select Committee. He's currently the Publicity Secretary for Sarawak DAP and the Youth Chief for both DAP and Pakistan. A little bit of sound there. Kelvin's Wikipedia page lists his educational and political history, but it also has a short section on personal life where it states that he has the unfortunate distinction of being one of the first few Malaysians to have contracted COVID-19 even before the MCO was in force, right? So achievements, not just in academics and career, but also in personal life. One of the first few Malaysians with COVID. Yeah, so you can find Dr. Kelvin on social media, on Facebook, Dr. Kelvin Yii, on Twitter, Kelvin Yii88, Instagram, Kelvin Yii, and TikTok, Kelvin Yii8. And we will drop his social media details later for all of you to to look him up, right? So without further ado, I'll just pass this time to Dr. Kelvin. It's all yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Josiah, for the very kind introduction, and a fun fact about me being one of the first patient of COVID-19. I still remember the whole drama. It happened when it was in 2020. But anyway, good evening. Salam sejahtera to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for having me on this. And it is really one of my biggest passion to share with young people, because I believe in the potential, I believe in the abilities of young people, not just to shape our nation, but really to build walls to guard our nation and set the direction where our country wants to go. So besides the introduction that you guys have heard, just a simple, please call me Kelvin. I'm currently 36 years old. I was elected when I was 31 years old. And at that time, I was the third youngest member of parliament in the whole of Malaysia. I was the youngest member of parliament in the whole of Borneo, third in Malaysia. The youngest was YB from Batu. At that time, he was 22 when he was elected. The second is the famous Sheikh Sadiq, was 26 when he was elected. And of course, third is me. I was also in Parliament, as mentioned. I was the Parliamentary Select Committee Chairman for Health, Science and Innovation. I was the youngest chairman that was elected, and also the youngest member of Parliament that was part of a very important budget committee as well. So I'm sharing this not because to show how good I am. The fact of the matter is I am just like you guys. I have my strengths, I have my weaknesses. But what I share this is because I believe that young people can play a part in building our nation. Young people can take leaderships. We always hear a phrase that young people are leaders of tomorrow, which is true, but young people can also be leaders of today. So I just want to give another simple story, and also on what my views are on politics and also nation building. And I really want to open up to each and every one of you to ask me questions, because I believe in engaging, in interacting, and I believe to hear inputs and feedback from each and one of you, because trust me, to build our nation, it is not the efforts of one man or one woman, but we got to do this together. So yeah, let's get started. I mean, the common question that most people ask is, Kelvin, what got you into politics? I mean, like, why did you go to politics? It's a very long story, but in a nutshell, my perspective on politics changed in a trip that I went to the Philippines. I think it was in 2011 or 2012. I was a trained medical doctor, and one of the things that I love doing is to use what I know, the knowledge or the skills that I have, to help the people that was in need. So it was in medical school that friends and I, we set up a non-profit to mobilize medical doctors, pharmacists, dentists, volunteers to poor countries to give free medical treatment, or to disaster-stricken countries so that they get the necessary medical treatment at that time. So I was in the Philippines in that period, and Typhoon Haiyan hit the town of Tacloban and the surrounding areas pretty drastically. And so we mobilized a team of medical doctors to enter. And I was in the city of Tacloban, and in about 6 days after the typhoon hit. And when we reached to Tacloban, the whole city was destroyed. And but then we found out that the big boys were there, the Red Cross, the Doctors Without Borders, the other NGOs and charities that were there. So we were asked to go to a smaller town that was very close to there. And it says that they need the necessary medical help. So I was 6 days in, and we were in a town called Estancia, and the devastation in that area was really bad. We have see houses just destroyed by the typhoon. There were dead bodies on the ground, and there were trees bended. Our people lost so much because of that typhoon. And I was so surprised that even though 6 days in, none of the villagers actually saw a doctor. So that time we spent almost two weeks there. Every day we treated thousands of patients from 8 in the morning till 11 at night. But while that happened, something clicked in my mind and saying that, why did these people not have good access to healthcare? Why are people still poor in these parts of the world? So while as a doctor at that time, it was really good. It was really significant to treat one patient at a time, to change one life at a time. But yet, I realized that there are policies of governments, there are policies of countries that will continuously keep people poor, keep people oppressed, keep people discriminated, and also keep people, for example, far from good quality of access of healthcare. So that is where my perspective started to change, in the sense that we have a lot of good people on the ground, whether it's doctors, whether it's charity workers, religious bodies, grassroots workers, they are doing great things, changing one life at a time. But the full transformation of society has to happen both ways, top down and also bottom up. Where top down is where government sets good policies. And once it comes together, then you have this holistic transformation of society. So that's when I challenged myself. I said, you know, who knows, one day I could be in this position to influence policies that would change situations in countries and governments and nations. So that is what really got me into politics. But again, as I said, people have said that to join politics, you need two things. One, you need cable, you need to know somebody, or you need money. Fact of the matter, I have none of that. But God was good to me. And then there were open doors for me to be part of it. So it comes again, this whole question. What is politics? I mean, young people, I know many are very, they don't understand it. They say that, why should I be interested? Politics in Malaysia is so messy, so complicated, so dirty, so negative. So I mean, and these are real concerns, because when we see the situation in Malaysia, why must I be interested in politics in the first place? And I understand. But you see, the reality of this, what we see is not what politics is about. Politics, in my view, it's about how can we get people from where they are to what they can be through good policies. Whether it's policies in healthcare, whether policies in education, policies for jobs, and so on and so forth. And that is why we need to redeem what politics is, to bring in mature and good politics to address the issues that's facing our nation. So friends, and I know young people, the answer to bad politics is not no politics. But the answer to bad politics is good and mature politics. And that is what I hope to achieve together with some of my colleagues. So in order to achieve that, we want the young people to be part of it. My heart is for young people. My heart, as I say, I believe that you guys are the leaders of today, not just tomorrow. So that is why when we were in government in 2019, we pushed for the amendments of the Constitution to allow 18, 19 years old to 20 years old to vote. I can even share with you that when we were pushing for that in our government, even within our government, many of them rejected, saying, no, we shouldn't give young people to vote. They do not know how to vote. They don't understand. They're not interested in politics. What if we give young people to vote and they vote against us and everything? So these are real concerns. But I debated in Parliament, and I pushed together with that time the youth minister. I said that, you know what, regardless of how the young people vote, we need to empower them. We say we believe in you. So we need to believe that young people can discern what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, and what is good for our country. And that is why we passed the amendments. And now for the first time in history, in this election, young people 18 to 21 years old, additional of 1.2 million voters around the whole country, can make their voices heard and set the direction of our country to where they believe it should go. Do you know that the youth vote in Malaysia is so important? As I said just now, there was a 1.2 increase just for 18 to 21 years old. But if we look at votes for 35 and below, we are looking at a third or about 30%, 33% of the whole voters population in Malaysia. Let me increase it a little bit. If we are looking at 40 years and below, we are looking at 58% of the total voter population in Malaysia. And this is very significant. And that is why if you make your voices heard, if you put pressure and show your demands to your elected representative, your needs should be highlighted and your needs should be met with better policies. So if you demand, you see, I always say this, politicians react to what their people want. If the people want bad politics, want all the scandals and the dramas and everything, politicians will react to that. But if young people, as I said, I always challenge this, if we want to see good and mature politics, demand that from your elected representative. So, as I said, in this coming election, as I said, for the first time, young people can vote. We are having a federal general elections. Certain states have state elections, certain states do not have. But on a federal level, what are we electing? We're basically electing member of parliaments to come up with policies, as I mentioned just now, that will impact, for example, issues of healthcare, which is on the federal government, education, federal government, welfare, security, defense, climate. All these are on issues of the federal government. So if we want to see better things in our country, we need to have put better leaders and a government that really believes in fundamental principles, fundamentals of justice, of integrity, of transparency, and of course of truth. So young people, politics affect you in every way. Don't think that, oh, I don't care about politics. The fact is, even if you don't care about politics, politics care about you. I always say this, when you wake up in the morning and you get off your bed, politics is there already. When you walk into the bathroom, you know, we always sing bangun pagi, gosok gigi. Before you gosok gigi, you on your pipe, sure or not? Once you on your pipe, whether water comes out, that's politics. Because if you have a bad government, no water come out. If you have a bad government, maybe teh tarik kind of water come out. So everything we do involves politics. So if we run away from it and not make our voices heard, what happens is other people will decide for us, and this is not what we want. So the question I want to throw to you guys, and of course I'm again open up for question, is what Malaysia do you want to see? Do you want to see a Malaysia which provides a good ecosystem, a good platform for you to do well, whether to have equitable education, to have better quality jobs, to have affordable housing, to have good policies to address the threat of climate change, to have good policies for good healthcare, even for young people? So the first step that you can do is to vote. You can be part of it, because democracy is not just voting. Democracy is being part of the whole process. But that first step is voting, because everything that you want, the Malaysia that you want to see, the first step is to come out to vote. So people over history, if you look around the world, I always say this, young people are the barometers of the nation. A lot of times when a nation is going in the wrong direction, the people that rise up first are always the young people. So if young people, you see in our country, if there is something that is not right, if you see injustice, if you see discrimination, if you see oppression, if you see poverty, if you see there's something that is not, you cannot accept, be part of that change. And the first step you can do is to come out to vote. And with that, I give it to you guys. And any questions, please, any questions you want to ask me, I'm more than happy. You can ask, what's my favorite color, what's my favorite football team? I'm more than happy to answer, but give it to you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much to Kelvin, much appreciated. So after this introduction that Kelvin has done and just what he is sharing, his heart here really is to have a conversation and a talk with all of you who are here today. So there are some of you who are here on Zoom, and you can, after I go through this slight housekeeping matters, then you can ask him questions. Just raise your hand with the Zoom React so I can call on you and unmute so that we don't have many people at the same time. You could also post those questions on the Zoom chat. I know some of you as well, I can see are looking at us on Facebook, on the Church Online platform. Posting questions there is fine as well. We are monitoring that. And then I will help to read these questions out to Kelvin during this Q&A session. So the basic rules is, if you're asking a question, please identify yourself, because especially on Zoom, you are a faceless voice. So who are you, where you're from. We don't need biography, but for example, hi, I'm Oon-Ee, and I'm a lecturer, or I'm Oon-Ee, I'm from Selangor, I'm from Subang, I'm from SSMC. Just give us some context where you're from. Secondly, when you have a question, please keep it brief. Honor the time of everyone here, whether it's Kelvin as well as everybody else, and make sure that the question is to the point. I'm going to be a bit strict here if the question is meandering, to ask that, hey, could we please get to the point so that we can optimize our time. There is some focus here on the area of UNDI15 and the youth vote and GE15. But as Kelvin has said, he's quite open to other questions. And as long as he's comfortable with that, then I think that is fine. Sometimes there'll also be follow-up questions. So if while he's answering, you want to follow up and respond to his question and ask a further to his answer and ask a further question, just raise your hand again. So me and Josiah will be watching that, so we can call on you again. Sometimes there may be technical issues. For example, if your internet connection is problematic, some audio may be dropping. If we can hear that on our side, then I apologize in advance. I may have to cut you off and request that you type the question, just so that we can fully hear and address the question. So with that, we can just get started. I will start first. The prerogative of the moderator, yeah, Kelvin. And just to ask you the question that you asked right at the end, you have told us, okay, not us, I'm a bit older, but you have told the young people here, what is it that you want to see for Malaysia? So Kelvin, maybe in a few sentences, can you tell us what is your heart's desire to see for our Malaysia?
Oh, for me to express that vision, I would need at least an hour. But I think let me summarize this. I want to see a Malaysia that when every time we mention that we are from Malaysia, we feel proud of. Like genuine pride, not just I'm proud of Malaysian food, but we're proud of how our country fares, where our country stands on international stage. We're proud that in our country, people get fair chances for education, people get fair chances for jobs, people feel like they can excel, even people feel they are taken care of, people feel that if they have a issue that they are facing, that their neighbors, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of demographic, actually sincerely cares. And this is a Malaysia that I want to see, a caring, a loving, a clean Malaysia, which actually respects, not just tolerate, but celebrates our diversity and celebrates even our differences. Because I think this is the Malaysia that we all want to have, that when we go out, there are more things that we can be proud of, not just the food that we have or the badminton players that we have. So yeah, this is a nutshell of the Malaysia that I want to see.
Okay, thank you very much. Josiah, the next question.
Thank you, Dr. Kelvin. Okay, we have a question from Naoki. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And I think this is an interesting question. And I think maybe it's a more personal one as well. Naoki asks, how do you handle backlash or I suppose personal attacks from your opponents?
Oh, thank you so much, Naoki, for that question. And that's a very, very good question. I think, of course, as a politician, we get all kinds of response, regardless of what we do. Whether we do good, we will get all kinds of response. And I think it's not just limited or exclusive to politicians, but we face this in every jobs that we do. I think the most important thing is to stay focused and humble. So stay focused on what really matters, on what is right, and stay humble to be corrected if you are wrong. So how I normally address criticism is first I analyze what has been said. So once I analyze what's been said, then I try to pick out what the person actually means. So if there is something for me to improve or there is something for me to correct, I'll humble myself to ensure that I learn it. But if it is merely trolling or it's merely just trying to pull you down, make you feel bad, then I just sweep it aside and I just move on and focus on what is needed, what is urgent, and what has to be done. The most important is the intention of your hearts, of what you want to achieve has to be clear. Of course, to achieve a certain aim or certain goal, there may be different pathways or different ways people want to achieve it. But as long as what you do, you have a sincere heart and you feel your intentions is right, we keep on going. And I think young people, this is something that we all need to learn. And I've shared this with most every young people that I meet. When we receive criticism, we got to humble ourselves to listen to it. A lot of times that when we receive, for example, scolding, and this is in every sphere of our life, we receive scolding, we tend to shut off and we don't want to hear. So even though the scolding, in my view, maybe is unfair, it doesn't make sense, but we should try to listen to it. Maybe our 90% that was said is not relevant, but maybe that 10% that was said, we need to hear it and we need to make amendments. So that's the value, or at least that's the spirit that I try to keep when I read certain criticisms against me, so that if really there is a need to improve, a need to change, a need to correct maybe certain statements that I made, I humbly accept it and be better. But more importantly, you keep our hearts pure, we keep our minds clear on the direction, and if really there are people that are just out there to pull you down, you can just be grateful for them, celebrate the differences of opinion, but don't let it hinder what you are focused to do. So I think people eventually, majority will see that sincerity. Majority of people will see what you are trying to achieve, especially if you have a clean heart. So I hope that answers your question, Naoki. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Kelvin. I will just jump ahead to a question which is a bit related. This is from someone named Della. How do you feel when GPS said that Pakatan Harapan has failed during their 22 months as a ruling government?
Thank you so much, Taylor, for that question. So this is a very political question, so you don't mind if I give a very political answer. Again, I think when it comes to politics, both sides will say different things of one another. But this is what I want to always challenge and encourage young people to really decipher. Because as I said from the beginning, we want mature politics. We want good politics. And the best good politics is when we listen to both sides, we study on the issue, and we don't take everything that each politician say on face value. So there is a research background, there's a fact check background that you need to take. So in my view, what GPS say is basically political rhetoric. In 22 months, I will be first to admit, Pakatan Harapan wasn't a perfect government. There are things that we could have done better. There are things that maybe we would have done differently. But the fact that we did not do anything in 22 months, it is, in my view, unfair. First and foremost, in every election, the term that is given to any government is 5 years. Okay, so to judge a performance of a government in 22 months for a 5-year report card is not a fair comparison. So I think, a lot of young people here, you guys sit for exams. For example, if I give you a 3-hour exam paper, half an hour, suddenly I collect all the papers back, give me back all the paper, and start grading you a fail in half an hour, even though you're supposed to be 3 hours. Do you think that's fair? So again, I'm not saying that we were a perfect government, but to compare it with, for example, 60 years of the previous government, it's not an apple-apple comparison. But in 22 months, even for Sarawak, there were a lot of things that have been done. Allocations to Sarawak and Sabah was actually increased 40% more than what it was given by the previous government. Anti-corruption measures was the most important fundamental things that the government that I represent was pushing for, because we recognize that corruption was the biggest cancer affecting our nation. Corruption is like a big hole, okay? So if you do not mend the hole and you try to throw more money in, what happens is the money just goes missing. It goes into the pockets of the elites or the corrupt. But we wanted to make sure that anti-corruption measures were addressed, so that once we have better, more revenues and all, it doesn't get lost. So that is why Pakatan Harapan, we tabled a very comprehensive anti-corruption measure master plan. And this is a long-term thing. You cannot tackle corruption in 1, 2, 3 years, or even 5 years. It's a long-term kind of thing. And then because of that, we had international ratings that graded us to show the improvements under our government. As I said, we were not a perfect government, but one of the fundamentals that we believe in was anti-corruption. So this Corruption Perception Index, or CPI's international rating, we were position 62. And in 2020, we jumped to 51 in the whole world. And this was the best position Malaysia had for 27 years. When the government collapsed in 2020, the new government came up. The year after that, it just probably got worse. So again, as I said, we are not a perfect government. But to say that nothing was done, actually there's so much, I could list out many, many more. But the fundamentals, in my view, is this anti-corruption and good governance. As I said, good governance is the fundamental thing to save the country. So I said, bad politics, answer is good politics. Bad country, answer is good governance. And once you have good governance, and good governance is not a privilege that we should have. Good governance is the right of every Malaysian. We shouldn't demand for it. We should have it in the first place. And if we want our country to really progress, this is the fundamental that we need to demand. So I hope that answers your question. And if you have any follow-up question, I am more than happy to elaborate.
Yes, thank you, Kelvin. So this is not directly a follow-up question. It's actually from this the first questionnaire, Naoki, but I think this is a good follow-up directly for this question. So one of the things that you said in your answer is that we must be discerning in terms of what the politicians say. How do we determine, as voters, as young voters, how do we determine who is telling the truth and who is telling the lies?
Oh, very good question again, Naoki. You know, we live in my view, a hyper information age, where information is right at the click of our mouse, right at the touch screen of our phones. You can easily Google it. There is two sides to this hyper information age. That is good, and of course there is the bane of it. The good things I said, it's very easy to Google and search. Is it true? For example, the simple question, did Pakatan Harapan did nothing in 22 months? It's very simple to Google achievements of Pakatan Harapan in 22 months, or achievements of Barisan Nasional in the past 15 years. As I said, it's important for you to fact check everything you say. So I represent a party called the Democratic Action Party. One of the most common accusations that is thrown at us is that we support communism. So again, Google, does DAP support communism, for example, and read both ends of the divide and make the right judgment based on available facts. But with that said, I know it takes an extra effort, but read credible sources. There are fact checkers. There's ATP. There are credible fact checkers on the internet that you can easily Google to check different things that has been said. So again, sometimes common sense and wisdom comes into play. I trust the discretion of young people. Every time you hear a message and you feel there is something that's off, maybe go Google it, maybe go fact check it, and then make a decision based on that. And that's how mature politics should be. Fact of the matter is, sometimes I encourage you all to challenge your elected representative. If, for example, what I say today, and I said something wrong, please challenge me, because that keeps me on my toes. That keeps me pushing me to improve myself, because then I have to make sure that I am in a better position to represent you. Because if my people that I represent never question me, even though I do wrong, I will continue being bad. I'll be continue lying and so on and so forth. But it is people that's willing to stand up for the truth, to put me in place and everything. Trust me, we will have better leaders in Malaysia. So I hope that answers your question, Naoki. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelvin. I would like to follow up on that, because you talk about keeping you in check. And this is actually a question I myself have. We vote in different areas. So a lot of us vote in similar areas. None of us are your voters here, I think, because we are mainly Semenanjung people. But as an individual voter, what are my options for keeping my MP or my ADUN accountable? Is it limited to, for example, I know how I can contact my rep, and I can bug them by email, I can post on their social media. Is that all that I can do? Are there what other channels are there for us to participate, in the sense to directly feedback to our reps outside of the voting season?
Very, very, very good question. As I said, that voting is not the only democratic thing that each and every one of us can do. We need to participate in democracy. Voting is only once in 5 years. But what happens in between? Happens in between, we got to keep our elected representative accountable on their toes, and to make sure they perform or even keep to the promises that they made to the people. Besides what was mentioned, you can, of course, the most common thing I will encourage every young people is go Google and search, number one, who your elected representative is. Number two, where is their office? What is their contact number? What's their email? What is their WhatsApp number? Trust me, all these are public information. My phone number is on public sphere. So a lot of people message me and call me for their issues and everything. So even if there isn't, email them when it comes to different issues. So I've received email, like as I said, I was the chairman of the Select Committee for Health, and in Parliament, I debate a lot about health. I receive a lot of emails from people talking about health issues. So they add input, they have advice, and this is something that I really appreciate, in the sense, as I said, I'm not the expert of everything, and I need everybody to be part of building our nation together. So that's where we work together. But with that said, I want to go one step further and challenge young people, and of course people that are watching here today. When we give our feedbacks and our even inputs, don't merely just of course, it's important to point out maybe an issue or problem and everything. But what I really appreciate is when people go on the length to even research or even to use their expertise. For example, if your expertise is in health, to show out recommendation of policies of how you feel we should address this issue. If your expertise is on education and you're very passionate about this issue, go to a certain extent of how you think we should do in terms of this. So this adds value. This adds, in my view, something constructive to the whole discussion. And this actually just matures the whole process of democracy. And even as young people, and I always challenge young people this, we want to be heard. We want our voices to be heard, yes, but do not just be heard because we are loud or we are shouting, but make sure what we say or what we ask matters, and what we say has gravity, has substance, has weight to it. So how you do that? Do your research. When you are passionate about something, make sure that you know the best that you can of that issue, and then once you raise it, then people cannot ignore, because what you say matters. So besides all the things that I mentioned just now, one thing that before I entered politics, I was very actively writing in columns on Malaysia Kini, on news columns, Malay Mail, and so on and so forth, on topics that I was passionate about. At that time, a lot about Sarawak politics and everything. So because of me writing on my thoughts, on my solutions, on my views on how to do it, that's how I slowly built my base as the people start to recognize, and of course doors were open to me into politics. So young people, don't think you are too young to give a good constructive feedback or comment on issues that really matters. Trust me, young people, I know you guys are very interested in issues of jobs and even good quality pay. Maybe write into your elected representative, says that, what do you think can we Malaysia do to increase, for example, have more better quality jobs? Then if not, go another step further. What do you think are the policies that you can address this? Some of you are interested in environment and climate change. What are the policies and what are the issues that is faced? What do you think the government should do? And even challenge them. What is the timeline for you to do it? And you can even write memorandums. You can go to parliament. You can go to state assemblies to pass it to your elected representative. You can go to the office of the representative to say, this is my research. I want to contribute to be part of the solution for this problem. Can you help me champion it? And trust me, imagine if everybody plays their part, this will be a much better country. As I said, it's no one man or one woman can save Malaysia. It takes the collective participation of all. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Dr.
Josiah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to combine maybe two similar questions together, and then another follow-up one. And this is from Pastor Ashok and Miss Hillary, all right? And so they are essentially asking about how vital has been the anti-hopping bill and the automatic registration of voters above 18 years, or for the first time in Malaysia, in determining a fairer election process. And Hillary, I think, follows up that question nicely with, are we actually expecting a pretty large voter turnout? You said it adds 1.2 million, but based on like recent, statistics coming out of Malacca, Johor, and Sarawak, it hasn't been that much. So what are your comments on that?
The anti-hopping law, for those that are not aware, was passed in Parliament. I think it was this year. And this was a very important reform that we need to have, because I'm sure that maybe some of you are not aware, but those that are aware, in 2020, when our government, Pakatan Harapan, collapsed, it was due to people jumping from parties to parties. In the sense that for example, I stand in Bandar Kuching under a DAP platform. But after I won, I realized that somebody offered me a better deal to jump to another party and to support the other side. Then I betray what the voters voted me in, and I jumped on the other side. So this has caused a lot of instability in our country. Of course, on the past 3 years, we had three different prime ministers, and people have actually lost hope or even trust in the system. It says, why must I vote? I vote also, you jump here. I vote also, you jump there. So it doesn't matter who I vote. Everyone is the same. So this happened to a certain extent in Malacca, Sarawak, and also Johor elections. Turnout rate was very low, because when we were on the ground talking to people, same, as I said, people are saying, why must I vote? You guys jump anyway. So that is why this anti-hopping law was important, so that people actually trust the system. People trust that their vote matters, that who they vote for should stay the course that they are supposed to stay. So that's why we passed it this year. And this election, the anti-hopping law is in place. So do not worry. Of course, it's not a perfect law. I don't think it's easy to make a perfect law, because there's so many circumstances there could be. But it's a huge, significant step. Now, whoever you vote, for example, if you vote me in Bandar Kuching under a DAP platform, and one day I got offered 60 million, true story, somebody claimed to say if they are willing to offer me 60 million if I jump over, and if I accepted it, I will lose my seat as a member of parliament, and then I have to go through another re-election in Bandar Kuching. So people or politicians will think twice whether they want to jump or not, because technically they can't. So now you can vote with a calm heart, with a peace of mind, and the confidence that your elected representative will not jump. So I encourage again, we are a long way. We got a lot more to do. So let's play part, let's vote, and have more trust in the system. Yeah, hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Kelvin. Okay, this one is from Asher. Hi, Dr. Kelvin, first-time voter here. How do I and young people like myself determine who I vote for? Is there any advice you would give to young people like us?
I think first and foremost, find out who are the candidates running in your constituency. Certain states like Pahang, Perak, and Perlis is having state elections. Certain states, of course, if you're staying in the Klang Valley, Selangor, you may not have state elections. You're staying in KL, you have the federal elections. So first and foremost, find out who your candidates are. Okay, after you find out who your candidates are, find out which party do they represent. Then find out overall what does the party's ideology, principles, policies is. Find out who the candidate is. Do you think this candidate can identify with you? Do you think this candidate can really bring those ideas and policies with you? Do you think this candidate relates to you? Do you think you can trust this person to do it? And then you make the decision. Of course, as I said, in a federal election, we are choosing a federal government. To have a federal government, so a coalition must win majority of the seats. In parliament, we have 222 seats. 222. Excuse me. So in order for a coalition to form the government, it needs 112. So if you believe that, for example, this coalition is the one that fully, it won't be 100%, but best represent what you believe in, whether it is in terms of anti-corruption, in terms of integrity, in terms of justice, in terms of certain policies that you subscribe to, then we have to ensure that they win as many seats and cross that 112. But the first step is, of course, at your own constituency, who are the leaders, who they represent, what they represent, and then you make the best choice for yourself. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Kelvin. There's a question here actually from Charles Liew from Kuching. Hi, Kelvin. When it comes to fighting for Sarawakian rights and Sarawak's autonomy, how do you grade GPS performance in this regards? On the face of it, seemingly they are doing great. So he mentioned Sarawak Pay, which I only know because I use it to get some cashback, and Petro Sarawak. What do you think?
I won't. Okay. Let me answer it this way. I believe that positive pressure is always good for the country. For example, in democracy, a good government will normally will be better if there is a good opposition pressuring the government. So I believe to a certain extent, GPS now has kind of bucked up in terms of what they are demanding in comparison to what they were before under BN Sarawak, because there is a more demanding, stronger opposition. And of course, there's a more demanding and more educated electorate or the people that are voting for them. So a lot of the rights that were achieved under the GPS have claimed to have got is because of positive pressure that comes from a counterbalance between a strong Pakatan Harapan and of course a pressure of GPS. Let me give you a few examples. When Pakatan Harapan was in government and GPS was a strong unit, because of that pressure, we form, of course it's the manifesto promise as well, we form a special select committee for the MS63 or the rise of Sabah and Sarawak to come up with what we can address. And out of the 21 issues that was discussed, 17 was agreed upon. And this was done within a year and a half. Before that, under the previous government in Barisan Nasional, there was so-called such committee as well, but there was no transparency. We don't even know what was discussed. We don't know what was agreed upon it. But at least in doing Pakatan Harapan, it was transparent, it was clear, it was bipartisan. And again, due to that counterbalance, things were agreed faster. Second thing, then Pakatan, when Pakatan was under the opposition, due to our presence and our influence in Parliament, we signed a memorandum. Okay, for those that do know, we signed a memorandum of understanding or MOU with the Prime Minister at that time, which is Ismail Sabri. During Sheraton move, the Minister of Sarawak and Sabah Affairs, Dr. Maximilian Onkilili, claimed that they will restore Sarawak's original status in Article 1.2 to what it was original within 6 months. But 20 months has passed and they did not do anything. The moment we signed the MOU, and one of the conditions for the MOU was that the restorations of that has to be expedited. Within 2 months of signing it, it was done. On top of that, due to the MOU, we had the capacity and we had the standing to negotiate with the finance minister, especially when it comes to demanding more allocations to Sabah and Sarawak. In the 2021-2022 budget, when the finance minister announced a first development funding to Sabah and Sarawak, yes, it was relatively high, but we say that it's still inadequate. So Pakatan Harapan went to see the finance minister, and we negotiated an additional 450 million was allocated to Sarawak, and of course another 450 to Sabah. So again, as what I'm saying is this: in a democracy, we need this counterbalance. You see, if one side controls majority, we have seen in the history, not just in Malaysia, but all around the world, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. They cannot be no counter check and balance. They cannot have no opposition. They cannot have no transparency. And no political party can claim to represent all of Malaysians. So this is my view that whether the progress that we have on reclaiming rights for Sabah and Sarawak is due to this good counterbalance between, of course, Pakatan Harapan and of course the demands of GPS and the government in Sabah, and is healthy democracy. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, thanks so much, Calvin. Another question from someone who asked earlier, Ms. Hillary. In our electoral system, do you think it's time for change? Because we are still using the Westminster first past the post. So honestly, Calvin, I think you may need to explain this as well, because some of our audience may not be familiar with it. So we are still using the Westminster first past the post system, which we inherited from the British. If you look carefully, the electoral system itself is outdated and obsolete. And we might need to change to rank voter choices, proportional representation. What is your opinion on our current electoral system?
Oh, very good question. And I'll be first to admit I'm not the expert in the field, but also I'll try my best to explain it as simple as I can, or at least best to my understanding. And of course, I stand corrected. First past the post system is the system that we inherited from the British. So basically, it's the very common system where I vote, and whoever has the majority of that vote will win the election. So if, for example, if there are 3 candidates, like for example in Bandar Kuching right now, there's 3 candidates. So if one candidate gets 20% of the vote, the other candidate gets 40% of the vote, and the other candidate 40+%, and the other candidate get maybe a slightly higher. That candidate wins with a slightly higher percentage wins, even though he may not get 51% of the vote. And this again don't count on the total turnout of the area. And the inequality of this system is because there is something what we call redelineation and gerrymandering in Malaysia, for example, where the election commission, which is in charge of elections, they can actually draw lines around your constituency and then determine how many voters are in a constituency and everything. So what has happened in the past, I mean, what we have today, is we have seen attempts of the election commission to draw lines, very unfair lines. So actually you see electoral map, right? Sometimes my constituency, if you look at the overall, the shape is very funny. Some is even funnier with really weird shapes. And then you see uneven population on different constituency. Those who live in Klang Valley, the constituency of Bangi, where the Mines Wonderland is, you have 300,000 voters. And 300,000 voters choose 1 member of parliament. Bandar Kuching is it used to be the biggest constituency. Now after the UNDI15 and automatic, it is the 4th. Bandar Kuching used to be the biggest. Now we have about 120,000 voters, and they choose 1 elected representative. But we have rural areas in Sarawak which have 26,000 voters, and they choose 1. So imagine a 26,000 voters constituency, they choose 1. Bangi, 300,000 choose 1. Then the vote of this 20,000 or 6,000 is actually more valuable than a 300,000. And this is what happens. Of course, politically, some people say it's because those opposition areas, they just draw really big, so eventually you just choose 1. But the one that at that time the government that controls, they have more seats in normally the rural areas. I won't go into that polemic. But there is a lot of inequality that majority of what Malaysian wants is not represented by the majority of seats that is in parliament. So even though, for example, 52% of Malaysians that voted for a certain coalition, majority, 52% of the whole population of Malaysia voted for this coalition, but then because of gerrymandering, the other coalition actually control majority of the seats. So one clear example is the Johor elections, the Johor state elections. I do not know the exact figure, but we are looking at, for example, the government that won only had about 46% of the total votes, but they control more than 2/3 of the seats. So these are gerrymandering effects, and this is basically the weakness of the first past the post system. There are different systems that have been studied, whether it's mixed, proportional, mixed MMPs, which for the Germany system does. Actually, when Pakatan Harapan was in government, we actually commissioned a study that was led by the election commission chairman at that time, the previous speaker, Tan Sri Azhar Harun, to actually come up with electoral recommendations and reforms that will be tabled to cabinet, and the cabinet will make a decision. Sadly, until today, that report is classified under the Official Secret Act. I do not know why, but I've heard from the different people that were part of the committee, they have recommended that that Malaysia adopt somewhat of a mixed system. But then for that system to come in place, it will take time, because Malaysians, we are still very used to this current system, but the conversation has to take place. This is my personal view. I think we need to start the conversations to really change our electoral system. Of course, there are many other reforms we need to do, but to ensure that we are better representative of all the Malaysians, and also we need to redraw our lines so that we don't have mega constituencies like a 300,000 voters, and something that I really believe in. We shouldn't draw our lines based on racial seats. We should draw lines so that each seat is proportionally represented of all major race. Okay, the problems right now in Malaysia is they draw one big seat of Chinese. My seat is 85% Chinese. Actually, it's not healthy. I'm going to say it's not healthy. Why? Because if I, for example, don't believe in national integration, I don't believe in national unity, every day I just fight on Chinese rights, I will win the election, but I'll burn down the country when it comes to national unity and integration. And we do not want to encourage that to any politicians. So the best way is that most, or if not all, constituencies should have a balanced representation of all race, so that even your elected representative then have to tone down on any divisive sentiments, because they need to win diverse groups of electorate. So I think that's the way forward. I won't go into details or technicalities. Again, I'm not the expert, but I think there are a lot of things we need to reform in terms of electoral system. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kelvin. I think maybe pressing into that a little more, and thanks for bringing up that racial aspect there. My question, and this is a personal one, I'm just curious, so the echo chamber effect is strong, I think, not just in Malaysia, it's all over the world, right? And we see that on Facebook, on the Twitter groups that we join, our own WhatsApp groups, these are all echo chambers of our own. And I think as an urbanite, and I think a lot of participants here fall within that category. How can we better understand why certain people, especially those different from ourselves, vote the way that they do? I think a lot of us, it's always easier to assume the intention than to actually know. And so what is your kind of perspective on that in your travels? What have you seen from the ground?
Thanks, Josiah, for that really good question. This is what I always encourage people. Social media has done a lot of benefits for us in terms of connecting, in terms of spreading message. But due to algorithms in social media, sometimes we are caught in our own bubble. What do I mean? If you do not know, I'm sure you guys notice, it's not just politics. For example, you are scrolling on Instagram and you saw a nice watch, for example, and you clicked on it. You notice the next few posts every day is all about watches. It's because these social media companies, they captures your cookies, basically your history, and then they will pop up all the things that is relevant to you. So what happens is in a social media is, for example, if I like a certain coalition, a political coalition, and I click on his news, the algorithm of social media will basically circulate, and all the coalitions, majority of the coalition's news will pop up. So that's where you become in a certain echo chamber, or a certain bubble where you just read a certain site. So that's why I said, I always encourage young people read. I say search Google. I didn't say go on social media and everything, to try to get a more balanced site. But beyond that, the best way to do it is to actually come up from our comfort zone, to visit these areas. And you don't have to go far. Actually, you just need to go down to the next nearby community that may be different from us, that may be diverse, to actually speak to them. I believe in the power of stories and personal story and lived experience. Let me give you a very clear example. I'm from Sarawak. We are one of the richest state in the whole of Malaysia, but then the people are poor. We have the highest numbers of IKASE recipients. IKASE is basically welfare aid for the hardcore poor. So how is a rich state, yet the people are poor? And then, after every Sarawak elections, the comments, especially coming from outside of Sarawak, is like, why will people still stupidly vote this government, even though the government mistreat them? Why they're so stupid? Just get, for example, get certain money and then they sell their future and everything. Because we have to admit, a lot of politics in the rural areas is all down to money. I helped in some rural election, and trust me when I say I've never seen so much cash in my life. People are just handing out cash and 50, 100 ringgit and buying votes. Of course, once you report it, this is all wrong. Once you report it, authorities are slow to act. Again, that's another topic for another day. But then you must understand the position of these voters. Rather than scolding them, you're stupid, you're selling your future away for 50 ringgit, for example. But these people are poor. These people are poor, that 50 ringgit to them is not just a meal for a day. It's a meal to feed their families. So instead of saying they are stupid, but how can we come up with solutions and policies to lift them up and to empower them? So even though people give you 50 ringgit, they're not dependent. So they're not dependent on politicians that hand out money. Sarawak, we have the state elections and federal elections on separate years. So we always say that these 2 years are like golden promotion years, time to get money from politicians. But you see, just imagine instead of, as I said, instead of condemning, how can we imagine of ways how we can empower these poor so that they're not dependent on this money? So that's the challenge that we have. And in West Malaysia, sometimes we always blame or we always question why a certain race vote a certain way. Maybe speak to them, ask them, understand them, empathize with them, listen to their stories, and understand why are they concerned, why are they concerns, and have an open conversation. I think it is important in Malaysia. We learn the skill of disagreeing, but still being friends after. So sometimes it's you cannot have this spirit of you're either for me or against me. We can have different opinions, but I think we still share the same heart for a better Malaysia, for example. But we need to take the effort to understand. It's easy to condemn, but then you gotta put yourself in their shoes. Why you think they are taking the money, for example? It's because they need it. They need that to put food on the table for their children and their children's food. So my challenge is always this. Of course, it's easiest is to Google, look on both sides. But one even more important thing, take a drive down to your nearest kampong, go to the next PPR. As you help them, listen to their stories, and trust me, you have so much to learn. Empathy goes a long way, and empathy, I think, helps us understand where each other is coming from. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Kelvin, especially for the mention of empathy. I think we could do with a lot more of that in various parts of Malaysia. Okay, so this just a question from Lipo Cheong. In your opinion, which parties would benefit most from the lowering of the voting age to 18?
I can't answer this question. The reason why is, as I said, even when we were in government and we made the amendments, there were leaders within Pakatan Harapan that were very against this. The reason why is the general conception that youth are anti-establishment. And that time we were the establishment. But as I said, the principle why we did it is regardless whether they vote for us or not, we want to empower the young people. But then now we're coming to a general elections. Of course, when we look at the Johor elections, I can share certain personal experience. The turnout rate for the young people wasn't great. Okay, one of the reasons could be they don't trust in the system because the anti-hopping law wasn't in place. The second reason could be the civic education towards the young people at that time wasn't great. Actually, when Pakatan wanted to, we did the UNDI15 thing. there was another wing to it. It's not just lowering the voting age, but then the education ministry was supposed to revamp the civic education in Form 3. So in Form 3, Form 4, and Form 5, they will learn about voting rights, what is election, what is a parliamentary election, what is the role of an MP, what is the role of an adun, so on and so forth. So that young people are prepared to vote. And it has to come hand in hand. It's two sides of the same coin. But the problem that happened was they did not, after the government fell, there was no focus on the civic education part. Fact of the matter, the government that time, they wanted to delay UNDI15 until we kind of signed the MOU, and there was a court case in Kuching as well. So to really predict where the votes will swing, I cannot predict. It's an untested variable, and I cannot speak for all young people. As I said, all young people have their own minds. Certain young people, again, my personal experience, a lot of people say young people are against corruption. I would like to think so, but it's not entirely true. When I was in Johor elections, when we were talking to young people themselves asked, bagi bapa duit untuk undi. And again, I don't blame them. Why? Because they grew up in that system. They grew up in that mentality. As I said, we need to understand where they're coming from. So in order for us to address issues of corruption or anything, it's a systemic issue. We need to address it on a system-based mentality, empowerment, and so on and so forth. So it's complicated, it's long-term, it has to be holistic. But again, of course, I have my own personal hope. What we are doing, at least on my side, is to really appeal towards in what I believe is mature politics. So instead of selling populist or fast sale sentiments, we want to sell policies and solutions addressing main issues that are close to the hearts of young people. As I said, affordable housing, jobs, affordable healthcare for young families, even aged care economy, because more and more young people have to take care of their elderly parents. So how do you get affordable this climate change, and even how to safeguard Malaysia for threats of the future, pandemics, and so on and so forth. These are all issues, of course, university reforms and everything. So I believe that is the bullets that at least on our side we want to use to try to attract the young people. It's not sexy. It's not catchy. It may not be super interesting. It might be boring, but this is what politics is in essence about: policies and solutions. So I have this personal aspiration. I always share this everywhere I go, especially with young people. Say, come, let us together. Let's make politics boring again. Let's make politics all about the policies, not about the scandals and the dramas that we often read in the newspapers. So yeah, let's make politics boring.
Thank you, Dr. Kelvin. Interesting spin there. I think maybe I'd like to throw this, and it's a bit of a shift of gears. It's a more personal question again from Naoki. And she says, she asks, how have you seen God work in your kind of political journey so far?
Because my faith is, I'm a Christian, and I'm going to share based on the faith that I hold on to. As I said, before I entered politics, there were two things people told me: before you go into politics, you need two things. Number one, a lot of money, and you need cable. You need people that you know. Trust me, when I first went to Kuala Lumpur to work and everything, I had none of them. But then God opened doors for me. So thinking back, if it wasn't God, I don't think I will be in the position that I am today. But being in politics is, and I think it's not just politics, but in every work in the marketplace, you face challenges, temptations, and even compromises that you need to make. You need wisdom to make decisions on. I'm going to be fully honest. My mentor, I believe in being accountable to somebody. My mentor told me before I entered politics is that politics is a game of compromise. Draw a line on what you can compromise and what you cannot compromise. And I think this is also in every workplace. So if, for example, my party or my coalition starts stealing money, starts discriminating against people, I cannot accept that. But do I agree with 100% everything my party or my coalition does? Of course not. So there has to be a clear line on what you can and what you cannot compromise. I think this is the same principle with every workplace and so on and so forth. So that's where my faith and the faith that I hold on to helps guide me and hopefully grants me wisdom to make these important decisions. So I'm not a big advocate, or I don't believe in having any religion or faith interfere with politics. But what I believe in is that our personal faith can direct or guide how I personally do my politics. So my principles, I believe in integrity, I believe in accountability. This is all part of the faith that I believe in. The fight for justice, the fight against discrimination, the fights against division, these are part of my faith. So as I said, I don't believe on any faith dominating politics, but I believe that it can dominate how I personally do politics. So that's in a way how God works through me. And I believe in that this was a door that God opened for me. And one day if God closes it, I will be there to answer the call and maybe do something else. And I think maybe my wife will be even more happy.
Okay, there's actually a raised hand. Vicky, you want to unmute?
Yes. Yes, Kevin, I have two burning questions, which are really hot button issues here. They affect the rakyat in Malaysia. Number one is concerning the economy, the inflation and the rising cost of living, which really affects the man in the street. And what we have right now, the present government, is a lot of bantuan, a lot of social welfare, a lot of subsidies, a lot of handouts, which are really short-term solutions. What are your views as to long-term strategies to stimulate the Malaysian economy? Yeah.
Wow, this is a long lecture.
In a nutshell, yeah.
I think in a nutshell, I think addressing the economic concerns is there's short-term gains, there's short-term interventions, there are middle-term interventions, and of course there's long-term interventions. I think on the short-term interventions, we do need government subsidies to control the inflation. We do need even Bank Negara to interfere with the OPR to control the inflations. But on the short term, one of the things that affect, for example, the value of our ringgit, and then because things are increasing crazily because we are importing, for example, we are net importer of food, and then because of that, things are in US dollars and now it's at very high rate. One of the ways, of course, they're multifactorial, but one of the ways that to instill confidence in the Malaysian ringgit and also to strengthen it is good governance. If we can cut out, as I said, if we can cut out corruption, if we can put foundations of good governance, anti-corruption measures, and when our CPI or Corruption Perception Index, our Democratic Index, our other ratings increase, and people seeing that we are being fiscally prudent, investors will start believing in Malaysia again. And once investors believe in Malaysia again, they will invest in Malaysia, and that again helps with strengthening our ringgit and of course strengthening our direct investments, whether it's domestic or internationally. So subsidies on the short term, better governance, cutting out wastage, cutting out corruptions, more targeted subsidies so that it is not abused. These are more short terms, or how we can address inflation. Long terms, as I said, we need to work on issues of food security. On my side, on my coalition, we have come out with our manifesto, which have very comprehensive. Again, I'm not the expert of the field. I'm just explaining on a nutshell what has to be done. But on a long term, issues of food security, how can we provide an ecosystem where we can, for example, adopt a technology into our agriculture so that we can increase yield, reduce cost, and not be dependent of imports. So this is important to address our food security issue. I think food security is actually very, very something important, and how to lessen our dependency on imports. So I am, of course, I come from a biased point of view, but I think on our side of the government, when we were in government, we better controlled the inflation. When we were in government, we were more proactive towards addressing, for example, capping the price of certain products so that it does not go up. A lot of the governments now, for example, only when people complain, or okay, then they address it. But at least when we're in government, almost every festivities, we don't hear people say, oh, prices only go up because of festivities and everything. So there has to be good governance, there has to be proactiveness in the government, and also government to sometimes think out of the box. What policies can we do to change and stimulate things? And for me, integration of technology into our industry, especially in agriculture, is important to address our food security. So I hope that answers your question. And of course, long term is in a nutshell, if I could answer it, good governance basically answers this. And if we can make it not to say a habit, make it a norm, I think Malaysia will be much better off where we are now. Hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Vicky, you actually said question 1. Do you have a second
Yes,
question?
I have another question actually. This is regarding the declining standard of education over the last 60 years, and that has been worsened in a sense by the quota system for admission into public institutions of higher learning, and also political appointees into public office in the universities. And also right now, the emphasis worldwide seems to be on TVET, which is vocational education, and STEM education, science, technology, maths, and so on. And so how, if Harapan government, PH, should come into being, how will they address this? How do they intend to address and arrest this problem of a declining standard of education in Malaysia?
Oh, another long lecture answer if I have the time. Again, you're rightly so. The best way to really empower a nation is to empower education. And then there's so much things that we need to do with education. One of the reasons, personally, one of the reasons why our education system has been going the direction that we are, because there's too much politics in education. There's too many unnecessary things teachers have to do rather than teaching themselves, or the fact that we do not invest enough to our teachers. If you look at the nations that has high PISA scores or good education scores, being a teacher itself is one of the highest respected jobs, even to the level of the doctor or even above the doctor. It's because they pay them well, they take care of them, they ensure that they are teaching and not being caught down by other paperwork and so on and so forth. So actually, one of the things that when Pakatan was in power in 2018, one of the things that the reforms that tried to do, look, our education minister at the time, Dr. Mazli Malik, got a lot of flack, a lot of criticism for certain issues like, okay, black shoes, white shoes, and everything. But actually, if you listen to his policy speech, well, he spoke about 1.5 hours on the reforms that has to be done. Of course, media caught the black white shoes thing, and then that became the headline, and nobody really paid attention to what was said before. But he made good points in terms of how to improve the roles of teachers, because education is all dependent on the quality of teachers. The education will never be above the quality of teachers. If the quality is low, teachers are low, your education quality is low. So how do you improve and invest into teachers? I think this is something that Pakatan Harian has been is going to focus a lot. How to make teachers' life easier in terms of, so that they're, okay, you cannot remove all paperwork, but how can you reduce workload so that they can really concentrate on teaching? How do we make teaching vocation as an attractive avenue for the cream of the crop of our students? Now you ask university students, top students, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and everything. Why can't they say, I want to be a teacher? So how can we make this ecosystem favorable for teachers? I think one of the things that we talked about, I think in the manifesto that Pakatan has, there is a huge chapter on reformation of our education system, and it's something that we have always focused on. Actually, when we were in government, the education budget was the highest ever in history, and because of the emphasis. So in terms of political interventions, in terms of quotas, this is a complicated issue. There is a reason why quota was in place, because they had to address a certain imbalance of race. Again, as I said, what started off as something good probably wasn't abused by certain groups, or what didn't really achieve what it intended, and what it caused is unintended consequences, what we see today. But we must be careful, because it's a sensitive issue, because we have political parties that play up this issue in the sense that they demand this is our rights anytime you change it. And I fully admit, when we were Pakatan Harapan, we struggled to handle some of this narrative. One example is the matriculation quota issue. Now there is a 90-10 quota for matrix. Let's admit it, there is a quota. Some people say there's no such thing. Let me be fully frank, there's a 90-10 quota. We tried to achieve it by increasing, if we wanted to decrease the quota, say to 80-20 or 70-20, to be fully honest, and I'll be fully honest with you, there'll be a riot. Basically, people will start saying that, oh, see, Pakatan is against certain rights and so on and so forth, and everything. And we have seen it with the case of ICET and so on and so forth. So how can we still give, how do we still give more chances for the non-Malays and non-Muslims without upsetting certain sentiments? That was the challenge that we have. So they came up with a solution. Was it the best solution? Probably wasn't the best, but the solution was, let's just increase the quota, let's increase the intake of both sides. So it's still 90-30, 90-10, but I just take more students so that more Malays go in, and also more Malays go in. Again, I say, was it the best solution? Probably not, but that was the solution that was thought about. But I think in order to address this quota issue, we need to, as I said, empower, and we need to educate, and we need to address insecurities by any race. That is where, as I said, we may understand this quota, for example, is giving them a handicap. We see it from our lens, and we may be right, but let's try to step into their shoes and to understand why are they so protective of that. And in a way, once you try to step in their shoes, empathize where they feel, then you explain to them, and convince them why being competitive is actually good for them in the long term. So this takes time. You cannot do a drastic step within 1 or 2 years, or even fact matter 3 or 4 or 5 years. So that's where we policymakers, and I think Pakatan Harapan, at least, again, we're not perfect, but I think we have the better, again, I'm speaking from a biased point of view, we have the better intention to try to transition away from it. It will take time. It will take more empowerment, more educating certain groups so that they can accept change. This is the thing that we want to do. But I think reformation of education is definitely one of the important things that we want to do. And I think one of the things that we did, not just on the lower secondary or primary, but in universities, in the past, they don't allow any students to be involved in politics. They limit their participation, even limit the information who can go into university. Pakatan basically freed and liberalized that, amended the law, so that because university is a place where young people should be exposed, learn, think for themselves, make their own decisions. And I think we have amended that, the Universities Act, and so that young people are more informed. And for the first time, I actually debated with the opposite political divide in a university. Before that, we would never be invited. So as I said, it's small steps, but focus, in my view, moving the country forward, there are a few focus, and one of the priorities is really education. Yeah, there's a lot more, but I don't think we have the time to get into it, but I hope that answers, at least on a nutshell, some of your questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky, for the questions, and Dr. Kelvin for the answers. I'll throw this one in. Besides just voting, what can young people do to influence government policies?
Very, very, very good question. As I said, voting is once in 5 years. What I believe in is participatory democracy, where young people being part of democracy is itself. So I said, I won't elaborate longly on what I said before. Be part of your elected representative. Know them, keep them on their toes, give feedback, give inputs. The fact is, sometimes if you really believe in a cause, start a movement, start a trend, start a hashtag, so that, because you see, as I said in the beginning, politicians respond to their wants and needs of the people. Let me give you a clear example. Bersih movement. Bersih movement was started because there was a huge demand for free and fair elections. The electoral systems in Malaysia was skewed or was biased or unfair to one side. But because Bersih demanded it, people start believing in it. People bought into it, and then more and more people crowded. The election commission made certain reforms and changes. The ink that you see, that was due to pressure from Bersih. Certain pachas coming to that one, certain other reforms, it was due to the movements of the pressure from Bersih. So do not underestimate the ability of pressure groups and social movements. So if you believe in a cause, and young people, I know you do, because you guys are passionate, you guys have all the information, you guys have creative ways, you got fresh ideas, start a trend, start a movement for something you believe in. Climate change, fight hunger, good healthcare. Okay, I'm more biased to healthcare. And then once it catches on fire, and this teaches you how to organize things as well. It's not about just being loud, but how can you be strategic about pushing your cause? How do you get partners? How do you get different stakeholders? How do you think you can attract different groups so that you attract the politicians that you want to attract? So all this is strategy, all this is planning, and this helps you with what you are doing on everyday life in your workplace and everything. So learn how to be organized, learn how to be strategic, be proactive. As I said, empower yourself so that what you say carries weight, carries gravity, and then start a social movement and participate in democracy. And you don't have to wait until you're 40, 50 years old, or you're the expert PhD of the field. You can actually start now, and everybody plays a role. So be part of democracy. Voting is just once in 5 years, but the next day after voting, you are also part of the democracy. You are part of nation building. You are part of setting a building block for our nation. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks, Kelvin. So interestingly enough, in your response to this question, you're talking about getting involved and organizing. And one of the forms of this is the participation in the political parties. So you are here representing DAP as well as Pakatan Harapan. So as voters, besides organizing in things like Bersih, UNDI15, which are extra governmental organizations, what's the like return in the sense of joining a political party, of voting in the internal elections? For example, I think DAP, your CEC elections, is this a way, easy way, a hard way to also effect changes on the national level? What's your opinion on that?
Thank you for the question. Again, as much as I encourage people to be part of politics, and we need good people, we need young people in politics, not everybody can join politics. We need people to still heal the sick, teach our children, build our buildings, and so on and so forth. So the thing is, as much as you can be interested in politics, but still be a very good engineer, and you're building our nation. You can still be interested in politics and be a really good teacher and educate our students. So it's not everybody will join a political party and be in frontline politics. My advice for young people is always this: find your political leaning and ideology. What do you believe in? What are the policies and principles do you believe in before joining a political party? Because After finding it, then you choose the political party that is closest to it, rather than join it first and form your political ideology. Because if you join a party and form your political ideology, then your principles will be based on the party itself. So do it first, then find the closest party. You won't get 100%, but find the closest party that attracts you to it. And if you are being called to be in frontline politics, we need to deal with the full package. As I said, a lot of people expect politicians, they see the glamour side of politicians, everything. But we have to deal with a lot of other things behind. And for example, when we join a political party, like in every organization, there is a hierarchy within the organization, and there is a leadership structure in an organization. So as you join an organization or political party, you need to contribute to the political party. You need to push forth the agenda of the political party. And if you want to run in the political party elections, you need to run for the political party election. And it's sometimes frustrating. And I'm going to be fully honest with you, because again, there is no perfect political party. Why? Because humans are not perfect. But with that said, if you want to impact change, the greater the dream, the greater the price to pay. So sometimes you want to have, for example, you want to make sure that you want to clean your party, or you want to feel that you want to bring positive influence to your party. There is definitely a price to pay. But if you want to achieve that dream, you got to pay the price. So for example, if I want good people within my party to take main positions of leadership, number one, I will campaign hard for those I believe to make sure they're positioned of leadership. And if I believe, for example, I can be a positive influence, I will also need to campaign and be part of that political hierarchy. So you cannot have this, and this is the reality of things. Of course, in an ideal world, it's not, but this is the reality of it. If you are part of a political party, you cannot just say, I just want to do my MP work and I don't care about my political party. It doesn't work that way, because you run on a political party platform. So you need to balance it in terms of working your role as an MP or adun or a community leader. But if you run on a platform as of a party, you also need to find ways to contribute to that party as well. So again, this is where wisdom comes in. I think if you realize that maybe a party have really swayed away, as I said, that's why draw your political ideologies first before joining a party. If you feel the party has really swayed really away from what you think, or doing things that you cannot accept, then in my personal view, you can retire gracefully or anything. So I hope that answers your question, but I want to paint a picture of the reality for young people. It's not as glamorous as what people think. There is a lot of sides to it. So my mentor told me, the bigger the dream, the bigger the price to pay. You want to achieve a dream, there is a price to pay. And then once you're part of an NA or party or organization, there is a structure that you need to go through, and that's the reality of it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Kelvin. Okay, I'm actually closing our question and answer session now. You've been very, I think, frank and honest with your answers, and I'm sure the participants appreciate it. One thing that struck me about you in your responses, you seem like a very hopeful person, right? And so with this final question, maybe you can speak on this a little bit. Regardless of how GE15 goes, right, whichever direction it goes, how do we as individuals, as citizens, cultivate a habit of hope that you have? You seem to have this hopefulness there.
I think, okay, this is my personal sharing. My faith plays an important part. I believe that God created Malaysia for a reason. I believe God placed us in Malaysia for a reason. And as a loving father, he wants the best for his children. So as things seems tough right now, as things they may not be like, you may not see hope down the line, but then you know that your creator wants the best for you. You know what's at the end of the line. So I have seen with my own eyes, while I seen as well the ugly in politics. I've seen with my own eyes many good people in it that are working hard on a daily basis. They are striving to make sure that to build a better Malaysia. They are good people in politics. Yes, they are jokers in politics, but they are good people in politics. And these people, seeing them fighting it through, standing up when things are tough. This gives me optimism. This gives me encouragement. This gives me the energy to go on. And I've seen enough good people in politics, and that's where I want to play my part. For me, the vision that really caught my heart before joining in was that God wants to build a wall to guard our nation. And this wall, this bricks is put in by different people of different skills, caliber, backgrounds, and so forth. Politicians, not only politicians save this country. We need the engineers, we need the lawyers, we need the doctors, we need the teachers, we need the cleaners, we need the religious leaders, we need civil society. So we all play a role to build our nation together. And when I see different people, whether in the political scene or outside the marketplace or in work, I am encouraged, because this is Malaysia, this is our land, and that is where I want to see. I'm hopeful for Malaysia. And just to end it with this, I mean, because we are talking about young people, in 2018, we had the highest turnout of young people that came to vote in the history of Malaysia in 2018. And our country was never the same after that. Yes, we hit a roadblock, we were challenges, but in every journey, there will be obstacles. So if what nobody expect could happen in 2018 happened, so what happened before can happen again. Don't mind me sharing my faith. If God has done it before, God can do it again. And I believe in that strongly. And I want to be part of that movement. So that keeps me going. That keeps me hopeful. I feel that we are all put in where we are for a reason. And until and when God says differently, then I'm hopeful and optimistic. So yeah, hopefully that gives you inspiration and keeps you going. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Kelvin. And on behalf of SSMC, I'd really like to thank you for really spending your time and energy just coming here to talk to us with your insightful sharing and the answers that you have given. And I want to thank everybody here as well, those who are on Zoom with us, those who are following us on the various online platforms. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. So maybe, Kelvin, just to wrap up, there are questions like, so how do we find out about the Pakatan Manifesto? Where do we read more? You want to, like, at the end of a podcast, give a bit of, okay, what should you be plugging? Where can we go to read more? And what's your final message for Malaysians, for young Malaysians who are voting?
Excuse me. Excuse me. After dramaing for 3 days, my voice is going. So to find out my manifesto from Pakatan Harapan, you can actually go to kitaboleh.my. Kitaboleh.my is very simple. Please read through our manifesto. You have even more comprehensive answers to the questions you're asking on economy, on education. On Barisan Nasional and Perikatan Nasional, sorry, I don't have the link with me, but you can Google it. I think we launched ours last week. BN just launched it yesterday, and PN launched it a few days ago. So, but read it and then compare it and ask tough questions. Sometimes the question I always ask when I read manifesto is, are you sure you can do it? Are you sure you can get this done? And so on and so forth. So I think my last message to the young people is make your voices heard. Make informed choices. If you find it difficult to read all this manifesto and you don't understand and it's very complicated, it's okay. Ask the simple question: what Malaysia do you want to see? What is right and what is wrong? What is good and what is bad? And you base your vote on that. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Kelvin. For everyone who has come today, and I address it especially SSMC members, thank you for the time that you have spent here. For our youth, for our young adults, if you should have further questions, we have already mentioned, and it's in the Zoom chat as well, how you can contact Dr. Kelvin. But within the church as well, we want to have our internal conversations, and I personally and the rest of the leadership team, the DGLs, would be happy to just have a conversation with you on perhaps what your thoughts are and what we as a church together, what role we play in this nation building. So yeah, we can continue this going forward. Perhaps we try not to bug Dr. Kelvin too much. This couple of weeks especially, he's really busy. There's lots of this drama going around. My own representative, I just saw him like walking around. Yeah, a lot of energy for that. So Kelvin, if you don't mind, as we close, can I pray for you? Would that be okay?
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yes. So come everybody, let's pray for Kelvin, and then we will close this session in prayer as well. Lord Jesus, we thank you for Malaysia, for this land that you have placed us in. We thank you for the blessings you pour out on this land. And as we have heard today from one of your servants who is really intending to see these blessings come to full fruition and to work this garden, Lord, that is our land. I pray for your protection on him, physical protection in terms of his health, his loved ones, those who are closest to him, as well as your protection on his heart and integrity. And we know that as much as he shares, there are other things as well that for various reasons, only you know, Lord. So may you continue to keep him, his compatriots, both within the same party or in different parties, that each of them, Lord, they will maintain integrity and maintain a righteousness before you, such that it would be to the benefit of our nation of Malaysia. We pray that during these few weeks of campaigning, you continue to give strength to Dr. Kelvin as he does what he needs to do by his profession. May he maintain his voice, maintain his energy. We pray against any illness that may come on him. And Lord, we want to pray as well for ourselves as a church, for our young people, our young adults, especially those who are voting for the first time. We pray that really we have this civic mindedness and consciousness, knowing really our role in this land, fulfilling our responsibilities, pouring out the love that you have shown and given to us, really to this nation and to the people of this nation. We ask that your heart will be most evident in the actions of your people. So as we go forth from here, we commit our steps to you, we commit our words to you. May there be words of grace. We commit our thoughts to you. May there be guided by your spirit. And we commit most of all the heart and hands that we demonstrate in the voting booth, but also in our communities, in our workplaces, in the way that we interact with society and this nation. So we thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we all pray. Amen. Okay, so thank you everybody once again for coming. This is officially the end of the session. We hope that, so there are a few extra questions which came in here and there, which we have skipped past due to lack of time. We apologize for that. Some as well because either they have been addressed in other questions, or some as well that perhaps are very speculative questions which would be difficult to actually answer. So we will close the session for tonight. Thank you all for coming, and yes, see you all on November 19th at the voting booth. Bye everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
God bless. Bye.
All right. Thank you. God bless.